What happens when a CEO shows up to count tulips and ends up watching his business wilt from the inside? Colton O'Reilly had owned the boutique flower chain for almost 9 years. He bought it from an older couple who were retiring and expanded it from 3 cozy stores to 14 across the state. Business was decent, but lately something didn't feel right. Orders were delayed. Complaints about wilting flowers came in more than usual. A few brides even asked for refunds, saying their bouquets looked tired. He asked his district manager for answers, got vague excuses, supply chain, weather, seasonal staff. But Colton didn't buy it. He knew flowers. You don't blame the sun for forgetting to water the plants. It had been 4 years since Colton last visited the stores in person. Growth had kept him in the office hiring, negotiating, expanding. Most store managers had never met him. He'd hired them through his team, interviewed over video, or inherited them when buying out smaller shops. He decided it was time to go see it for himself. Quietly, he shaved his beard, wore thick-rimmed glasses, dyed his hair darker, threw on a worn t-shirt, jeans, and a faded ball cap. He looked nothing like the clean-cut guy on the company website. Then he made a fake resume and applied as a temp at Store 9, a medium-sized flower shop in a busy suburb, run by a manager he'd never met in person named Dana. The application went through a staffing agency. The company used them during holidays and wedding season. No one questioned it. He showed up on Monday morning at 6:30 a.m., just before opening, with a coffee in hand and butterflies in his stomach. A young woman with tired eyes and a name tag that said Bridget opened the door. "You the new temp?" she asked, brushing her bangs out of her face. "Yeah, Calvin, just here to help with inventory and whatever you need," Colton said. She gave him a half smile. "Cool, we could use the help." Inside, the shop smelled like roses and damp cardboard. Buckets of flowers lined the walls. The backroom had boxes stacked to the ceiling. It looked like they got a huge shipment the night before. Bridget handed him a clipboard. "Here's the count list. Dana wants everything tallied before 9. She's not in yet." Colton nodded and got to work. He started counting roses, hydrangeas, lilies, sunflowers. Some looked fresh, others not so much, brown spots, petals falling off. He checked the delivery dates on the boxes. Some had yesterday's date, others were from 5 days ago. That's when Dana walked in. Early 40s, sharp eyeliner, and a Bluetooth headset in her ear. She didn't notice Colton at first. "Bridget," she barked. "Tell whoever's out back that we're using the old stock for today's arrangements." Bridget blinked. Even the wedding order, Dana didn't look up from her tablet. "Especially the wedding. They won't know the difference. Just spritz it, make it look fresh." Colton froze behind a stack of tulip crates. He peeked around. Dana was flipping through digital invoices. "But those are 5 days old," Bridget said quietly. "Yeah, and we're not wasting the fresh ones on some bridezilla who'll just cry about the ribbon anyway," Dana snapped. Bridget didn't respond. Colton stepped out, pretending not to have heard. "Hey, I finished the front buckets. Want me to move to the cooler?" Dana turned, looked him up and down. "Who are you?" "Calvin, new temp." She waved a hand. "Cool, just follow Bridget." As the morning went on, Colton noticed more red flags. Dana rushed arrangements, skipping quality checks. She tossed out inventory sheets and told Bridget to just estimate. A customer called to ask about a custom sympathy bouquet. Dana rolled her eyes and told Bridget to say they were fully booked. At noon, a middle-aged man came in to pick up an anniversary bouquet. The petals were discolored and drooping. "This doesn't look like the picture," he said. Dana swooped in. "Sir, flowers are a natural product, you know. They don't always look exactly like photos." He frowned. "But these look old." Dana forced a smile. "They're not. But if you're unhappy, I suggest you take your business elsewhere." The man left, bouquet still in hand. Colton saw Bridget's shoulders tense. She muttered, "He's not the first." Later, while unloading boxes, Bridget pulled Colton aside. "Can I be honest with you? I don't know how long I can work like this. Dana cuts corners on everything. She throws out the fresh stuff and uses the old just to save money. Customers complain and she makes me lie." Colton looked her in the eyes. She wasn't bitter. She was tired. Honest. "You ever think about quitting?" he asked. "All the time. But I love flowers. I just hate what this place is becoming." Colton nodded slowly. "Thanks for telling me. That night, Colton went home and stared at his ceiling. He felt sick. His company was supposed to be about joy, beauty, care. And here, one of his shops was selling decay with a smile. He knew what he had to do. Tomorrow, he'd come back early. And this time, he'd do a full inventory and keep the real numbers. He wanted proof, and after that, he'd stop hiding. Colton arrived at store 9 an hour before the doors opened. The street was still quiet, the sky pale with morning. He parked around the block again, slipping through the alley entrance. Bridget was already inside, tying her apron, hair pulled up in a messy knot. She blinked when she saw him. "You're early. Figured I'd help with the cooler stock before the rush," he said, setting his backpack down. She nodded, rubbing her hands together. "It's freezing back there. I'll take the front buckets if you want to start logging the stems." He headed for the walk-in cooler, clipboard and pen in hand. The air was sharp, the scent of eucalyptus stronger than yesterday. He moved methodically. He checked labels, counted stems, and noted condition, even snapping a few photos with his phone when he saw mold or rot. There was no system. Boxes were stacked by guesswork peonies with hydrangeas, roses crushed beneath sunflowers. Water in several buckets was cloudy and smelled faintly sour. By 7:30, Bridget joined him, rubbing her arms. "You always take notes like that?" she asked. "Old habit," he said. "Used to work for a shop that tracked every stem." She gave a dry laugh. "We haven't had a working inventory system since Dana took over." "She says it slows things down." He raised an eyebrow. "How do you know what to reorder?" She guesses. "Orders whatever looks low. We end up tossing a lot." He jotted that down too. "What about waste logs?" Bridget's face fell. "We stopped doing those months ago." Colton's stomach tightened. He stepped around a stack of boxes and nearly tripped. A bucket of carnations had tipped, water spilled across the floor. He crouched, righted the bucket, and saw several stems were completely black at the base. "They're still using these?" he asked. Bridget didn't meet his eyes. "Sometimes." "If it's not falling apart, Dana says it's fine." The bell above the front door jingled. Dana's voice floated in from the front. "Bridget, I need you up here." Bridget gave him a quick glance and left. He stayed in the cooler a few more minutes, checking the last row. A crate labeled Funeral Friday sat beneath a pile of overflow stock. He opened it. Inside were calla lilies and white roses, half of them already browning. Friday was tomorrow. At 8:15, the first customer walked in, a woman picking up a corsage for her daughter's spring formal. Colton watched from the back as Dana handed over a wilted arrangement with a tight, practiced grin. The woman hesitated. "It's a little soft, isn't it?" Dana stepped in fast. "That's garden style, very on trend, the natural look. You'll see it all over Instagram." The customer didn't look convinced but paid and left. Bridget returned to the prep table and began working on a sympathy wreath. Colton joined her, cutting stems. "She ever let you remake things if they look off?" he asked quietly. "If I ask, she says I'm wasting supplies. Once I redid a bridal bouquet because the roses were browning. She called it insubordination." He frowned. "What happened?" "I had to stay 3 extra hours that night restocking. She said if I wanted to throw things out, I could earn them back." Colton didn't respond. A delivery order came in at 10, a corporate client. Bridget and Colton boxed it up together. As he sealed the lid, Dana called from the office. "Calvin, I need you back here." He followed her into the cramped back office. She pointed to a stack of invoices. "Sort these by date and flag anything over $200. I want to pitch a discount offer for high spenders. Don't touch the wedding files." He scanned the papers. "You track wedding clients separately?" Dana leaned against the desk. "Yeah, they're the whiniest. I keep notes in case they try anything." "Notes? Things they said during consults, whether they seemed difficult, if they asked too many questions." "Helps to know who you're dealing with." He kept his tone even. "That's pretty detailed." She laughed. "You gotta stay ahead of these people. They'll cry over one-off color peony like it's a crime scene." He didn't reply. She walked off, muttering something about lunch menus. He started sorting the invoices but kept an ear on the front. Around noon, a teenage girl came in with her grandmother. The girl wore a headscarf, her cheeks flushed with excitement. They wanted to order a centerpiece for a small graduation dinner. "I was thinking something bright." "Maybe yellows or corals," the girl said. Dana didn't look up from the iPad. We don't have a lot of that in stock. You'll have to go with whatever's fresh. The girl smiled. Okay, what's fresh? Dana sighed. Nothing in coral. Yellow's not great either. You could do white daisies. The grandmother gently asked, could we see a few samples? I don't have time to pull samples for a one-table order, Dana said flatly. Colton emerged from the back, wiping his hands. I could bring out a few stems. It'll just take a minute. Dana cut him off. It's fine. They're leaving. The girl looked down. Never mind. Bridget stood frozen behind the counter. Colton stepped forward. Actually, I'm new here, but I'd love to help. If you have a few minutes, we can find something fun. Dana's voice went sharp. I said they're leaving. We're short-staffed. Colton turned to the girl. You deserve a proper consult. I'm sorry. Dana's eyes narrowed. You don't speak for this store. The grandmother gave a tight nod and led her granddaughter out without another word. The door shut behind them with a soft click. Colton turned to Dana. That was completely uncalled for. Dana folded her arms. We've got 3 weddings and a funeral this week. I'm not babysitting a $10 order. They were polite and patient. You dismissed them because you didn't want to make the effort. I run this place to make money, not feelings. Colton took a breath. Then you're running it wrong, she blinked. Excuse me, he looked at Bridget. Can you give us a minute? Bridget backed away, eyes wide. Colton reached into his back pocket and pulled out his ID, the real one. He placed it on the desk. Dana stared. What is this? Colton O'Reilly. I own this company and I've been working here the last 2 days. Her mouth dropped open. You're joking. I wish I was. Silence stretched. You lied to me, she said, voice rising. No, I watched. That's all I needed. She stepped back. If this is about the inventory, this is about everything. The spoiled product, the falsified orders, the mistreatment of clients, the manipulation of staff, the shortcuts, the lies. This store is failing its customers, and you've made it impossible for anyone here to do their job with integrity. Dana's face flushed red. You can't just barge in here and you're done. Effective immediately. Your access is revoked. Bridget peeked around the corner, startled. Dana looked like she might argue again, but stopped. Her expression twisted and she stormed out, grabbing her purse on the way. The door slammed behind her. Colton turned to Bridget. I'm sorry you've had to work like this. She looked at him, stunned. You're really the owner, he nodded. And this place is going to change, starting now. She leaned against the counter, exhaling slowly. I didn't think anyone would ever care enough to fix it. He gave her a small nod. Let's take care of the customers first. Then we'll talk about how to get this store back on track. She straightened, pulled her apron tight, and walked toward the prep table. Colton followed. They had a lot of work to do. By the time the front door clicked shut behind Dana, the store felt unnaturally quiet. Bridget stood near the counter, not moving, one hand resting on the edge as if she needed it to stay upright. Colton took off his cap and ran a hand through his hair. His voice was steady. Take 15. Sit down. Breathe. I'll handle the register if anyone walks in. She nodded mutely and disappeared into the break area behind the cooler. Colton stepped behind the counter, scanning the space with new eyes. The POS system was outdated, and half the buttons on the screen stuck when pressed. The receipts from the morning were scattered in no order, and the daily logbook was missing entirely. He opened the drawer beneath the till loose bills, no envelope system, and no record of transactions beyond what the system printed. He took a mental note to involve accounting. The bell above the door rang again. A young man entered, wearing a delivery uniform. He set down 2 boxes of mixed stems and wiped his forehead. Drop off for store 9, he said, pulling a slip from his pocket. Colton signed and opened one of the boxes. The flowers looked healthy. This batch hadn't suffered Dana's neglect. He glanced at the delivery man. You guys always deliver this early. Depends. Some stores ask us to come late to avoid overstocking. Others like it early so they can prep before the rush. The man paused. This one. She never cared. Told us just to leave it by the dumpster if nobody answered. Colton's jaw tightened. That won't happen again. By the time Bridget returned, he had already moved the fresh stems into the cooler and cleared out 3 buckets of spoiled stock. She looked at the empty space, then at him. You tossed it. He didn't look up from what he was doing. It was unusable, she hesitated. You're going to need help today. With her gone, we're down to 2 people. I know, I already called HQ. A floater from store 4 is coming after lunch. Her name's Tessa, Bridget blinked. I didn't think anyone would respond that fast. I asked them not to wait. She eased into motion again, tying her apron tighter and rolling up her sleeves. In that case, we've got to prep that funeral arrangement. Deliveries at 4. They worked side by side, Bridget trimming and arranging, Colton checking the order sheet, double confirming stem counts and ribbon notes. The back room was quiet except for the snip of shears and the occasional creak of the cooler door. An hour passed before another customer arrived, a middle-aged woman holding a printout of an online order. I'm here for a sympathy wreath. I ordered it last week. Bridget looked over from the design table. What name was it under, Wendy? For the Hargrove family. Colton stepped to the front, checking the order list. He frowned. The name wasn't in the system. He checked again. Nothing. Bridget moved quickly to the storage area where prepped arrangements were held. She returned empty-handed. There's nothing back there, she said. The woman's face darkened. It's for a memorial service tonight. Colton stepped forward. Give me 20 minutes, we'll make it right. She didn't raise her voice. It's not just about the flowers. It's about respect. I understand. They had just enough white lilies and snapdragons to build a substitute. Bridget worked with quiet urgency, her hands moving faster now. Colton organized the greens, wrapped the base, and handled the final touches. Wendy didn't say much while she waited. When they brought her the new piece, she stared at it for a long moment. It's beautiful, she said finally. Thank you for fixing it. She left without another word. Bridget turned to him. Her order wasn't in the system. She placed it. The call record was still on the phone log. Dana probably took it and never entered it. Bridget looked down. How many others? I don't know yet. They kept working. Tessa arrived just after 1, a short woman with a pixie cut and a confident stride. She pulled a small rolling case behind her and wore a black apron with the company's sunflower logo. You must be the boss, Undercover, she said, smiling faintly. Colton raised an eyebrow. Word travels fast. Store 4's a tight ship. When one of ours gets pulled without notice, we ask questions. He gave a small nod. Glad to have you, she glanced around. This place looks like it's been through a war. Still standing. Bridget introduced herself, and the three of them quickly divided duties, Tessa handling the walk-ins, Bridget on design, Colton moving between tasks, filling gaps where needed. He stayed out of the way when customers were being helped, watching, learning. Tessa was sharp, fast with arrangements, honest with clients, and comfortable saying no when something wasn't available. She didn't overpromise. At 3:30, a man came in to pick up a large order, 3 centerpieces and a bridal bouquet. Colton checked the tags. Pickup was scheduled for tomorrow, he said. The man looked confused. We confirmed yesterday. Dana said today. Bridget pulled the original form. The date had been altered. Sloppily, in pen, Colton stared at it. She changed the pickup date but didn't prep the order. Bridget looked at the stock. We don't have enough to make it all now. Tessa stepped up. We can substitute similar blooms, but it won't match exactly. The man hesitated. It's a rehearsal dinner tonight. The bride's been stressed. If the flowers don't show up. Colton cut in. We'll make it happen. It won't be exact, but it'll feel right. They worked quickly. Tessa pulled peach-toned roses and soft lavender stems. Bridget added eucalyptus sprigs and ivory ranunculus. Colton boxed the final arrangements, checking for balance and weight. When they handed it to the man, he exhaled hard. She's going to cry in a good way. As the door closed behind him, Tessa looked at Colton. How long was she running this place like that? Too long. You're going to audit the others, right? He nodded. Starting next week. They cleaned as they worked. By 5, the floor was swept, the cooler organized, and the backroom inventory logged properly for the first time in months. Bridget looked tired but lighter. Tessa leaned against the wall, sipping from a paper cup. Colton pulled his phone and made a call. Hey, it's done. Yeah, she's out. I'll send you the full list tonight. I want this store back to standard within 72 hours. We'll need a new manager. No internal promotions. I want someone clean. He hung up and looked at the 2 women. Tessa, you'll stay on for the rest of the week. Bridget, you're getting a bonus for documenting that mess under pressure. Bridget blinked. What? You earned it. She looked at him for a long moment. You're not like how I pictured. I'm not sure I am either. He turned off the lights in the back room and checked the delivery schedule for the next day. There was still a lot to fix. But for the first time in a long time, this store felt like it had a pulse again. 2 weeks later, Colton stood outside Store 9, arms crossed, watching as the last of the new signage was installed. The sun cast long shadows across the sidewalk, and for the first time in months, the windows were clean, the displays crisp, and the scent of fresh eucalyptus drifted out onto the pavement instead of stale water. Inside, the shop had changed, but not in a way that felt sterile or corporate. It felt cared for. The walls had been repainted a soft sage green, the lighting adjusted to bring warmth instead of glare, and the backroom had been reorganized shelf by shelf. Every stem was tracked, every order logged. It was still the same store, but now it worked. Colton pushed the door open. Bridget was at the design table arranging a set of thank you bouquets for a local school fundraiser. Her eyes lifted when she saw him. "You're early." Again. He gave a short nod. Wanted to see how the morning rush went. She stepped back from the arrangement, wiping her hands on her apron. "We had a walk-in right at open. A woman who said she hadn't been back in nearly a year. She ordered a wrap bouquet and actually stayed to watch me make it." How'd she look when she walked out? Relieved. Colton looked around. Tessa was in the back, working with a trainee from Store 8 Madeline, a quiet but focused woman who had been shadowing all week. Tessa had taken Bridget under her wing from day one of the transition, and the two of them had established a rhythm that didn't just keep the store afloat, it elevated it. He walked to the front counter, where a clipboard hung with the day's pickups, deliveries, and prep notes. Everything was color-coded, initials next to each task. There was no confusion, no dodging of responsibility, no guessing. Bridget joined him. "We have 3 weddings this weekend. All confirmed, deposits logged, stems pre-ordered." He glanced at her. "How's the team holding up?" "Tired." "But it's a good kind of tired," he nodded once. "You've stepped up. I'm not interested in running a store, just want to keep the flowers from ending up in the trash." "Not offering a promotion," he said, "but I did authorize a pay bump, effective next cycle." "You're critical here." She hesitated, then nodded slowly. "Thank you." A delivery van pulled up out front. Bridget went to meet it, and Colton walked into the back. Tessa was showing Madeline how to condition ranunculus stems for longer shelf life. Madeline listened closely, her notepad open, pen tapping lightly as she watched. Colton waited until the demo finished. "Tessa, quick word." She followed him into the office. The clutter from before had been cleared out. A simple desk, a working printer, and a small corkboard with scheduling notes now filled the space. He closed the door behind them. "You've stabilized the floor. Inventory's consistent, client feedback's positive. And we haven't had a single missed order since you stepped in." Tessa leaned against the filing cabinet. "That's the job, isn't it? Most people don't walk into a mess like this and turn it around in 2 weeks. I didn't do it alone." "No, but you led it. And you did it without hesitation." He reached into his coat pocket and pulled out a small folder. "I'm offering you the permanent manager role, full discretion on hiring, design, and store policies as long as they align with company standards. Salary adjustments listed inside." Tessa opened the folder, eyes scanning quickly. She closed it after a few seconds. Bridget deserves to be lead designer. She already is. Tessa finally smiled, a quiet one. "Then yes, I'll take it." "Good," Colton said. "You start officially Monday. But let's be honest, you've already been doing the job." They shook hands. As she stepped back onto the floor, Tessa passed Madeline a fresh batch of stems and quietly asked her to prep the water buckets. There were no lectures, no tension, just clear direction. Colton walked out front. The phone rang. Bridget answered. "Store 9, how can I help you?" She listened, nodded, and then looked up. "Special request. A man wants a bouquet delivered to his wife hospital room post-surgery, wants something that smells like spring." Colton raised an eyebrow. "That's specific." Bridget was already pulling stems from the wall rack. "I've got an idea." He watched her work. The bouquet came together fast: freesia, lilac, lemon leaf. It wasn't just the colors or the shapes. It was the way she balanced scent and softness, the kind of intuition you didn't teach in training manuals. A young man entered as she wrapped the bouquet. He wore a rumpled jacket and had the nervous energy of someone out of his comfort zone. "I called earlier," he said. About the hospital delivery, Bridget held up the finished bouquet. "This is for her," he stared at it. "She's going to love that." Bridget slipped a note card into the wrap. "It'll be there within the hour." After he left, Colton turned to her. "You ever consider teaching design? I barely like talking in front of two people. Think about it. We're building a training program. Could use someone who understands restraint." Bridget didn't answer, but her face carried a quiet thoughtfulness. The rest of the day moved at a steady pace. No chaos, no missed steps. At closing time, the floor was reset. The cooler was labeled. The waste log had only 4 stems, all damaged in transit. Colton stood at the door as the staff gathered their things. "Before you go," he said, "I want to say something." They turned to face him. This store hit a wall, not because of the people working it, but because of what was allowed to take root. You've all handled the cleanup with integrity, with care, and with a level of professionalism that I don't take for granted. I didn't see it until I stood next to you. Now I do." He paused. "No one should come to work afraid of being ignored, disrespected, or told to cut corners. That stops here. Permanently, no applause, just quiet nods. That was enough." He stepped outside, letting them finish their closing routine. The sky had turned amber, and a soft breeze carried the scent of fresh blooms from the open window. Colton pulled out his phone. He sent a quick message to his executive team. Audits would begin at all remaining shops the following week. Every store, every manager, every system would be reviewed directly. No delegation. No delay. He looked back through the window one last time. Bridget was laughing at something Madeline said. Tessa was locking the cooler. The lights dimmed one by one. Store 9 had been broken. Not by accident, but by slow erosion tolerated until it became the norm. But now it had roots again. Real ones. Ones that wouldn't rot from the bottom up. Colton turned, stepped off the curb, and walked back to his car, already thinking about Store 10.